Today we're going to be speaking about nutrition. How does nutrition affect our training? How essential is it to, load the foods according to how things are written in the plan? Essentially, what the public is taught about food is a very minute amount in comparison to what they need to know for sport-specific needs. Eating for sport is very different than eating from, say, Canada's Food Guide and just being concerned about 4 main food groups. There are a lot of different chemistry systems that come into full effect within the body that, produce higher metabolic effects or lower, depending on how poor you're eating or how good you're eating. Also, they affect hormonal systems, the endocrine system. They affect virtually every system that runs internal to the body, that essentially is based upon nutrition and chemistry. So ultimately, when we're in training phases, we really need to focus on our food as fitting the training plan like a glove, because you really can't out-train a bad diet. I mean, I know you guys have heard that a million times over and over and over. But it's the absolute truth. I mean, if your training and your food do not align, then you're going to be wasting a lot of time and effort in the gym for minimal results. So my motto has always been, less is more. So the least amount of things I have to do on a daily basis to obtain the maximum amount of results is exactly what I want to do. I don't want to spend 20 hours a week in the gym. I want to spend the least amount of effective, concise, and even compressed time in there to get maximum results. And how do we control the other side of that? Well, it's basically through our nutrition. So if our nutrition is out of whack, it's going to affect how our body actually metabolizes food. Our metabolism, if we had a little gauge on our chest that told us how effective our metabolism was functioning, then we might be a little bit more inclined to eat more healthfully on a daily basis. The vast majority of people eat mindlessly. They don't put any thought in the food. Food is not prepped. They tend to just shove stuff in their face during periods of hunger throughout the day until perhaps they get home at night and they cook a big meal and then they chow down massively and then go to bed and repeat that cycle day in, day out. So I would consider those types of patterns mindless and disordered, which will produce a very disordered metabolism. So if your metabolism is low, then you're fighting an uphill battle. It's like having a severe injury and trying to do really high intensity training. You're more apt to re-injure that than to do any good for that joint or whatever it is that you've injured. And the same thing with your metabolism. I mean, if your metabolism is injured or if your metabolism is slow, then trying to stress your body out with more activity and, decreasing more food or not paying attention to the food will only cause more drastic effects, which usually lead to stagnant or no weight loss, fat loss or otherwise, or sometimes even weight gain, no matter what you're doing. So for all intents and purposes, the way that CBalance works with our meal planners is that they really do fit exactly what you're doing on a daily basis. So, if you've slept all night, you should be up in the morning and breaking the fast or break fast. And if you're not eating breakfast, you're doing your body a huge disservice by not feeding it what it needs when it first gets up. You've just starved yourself for 8.5, 10 hours, however long you slept. So how can you effectively think that your body's going to function well on nothing? It's like putting, the cart before the horse and telling the horse to push it up a hill. It just doesn't make sense, right? If you want a Lamborghini, you can't have a K-car engine and expect it to do miracles. It's not going to happen. So your body's going to get stuck. So we want to avoid that wherever possible. We really want to take the time to pre-plan our meals, to preload our times of high intense activity. And that doesn't necessarily even just mean exercise. I mean, if we're working on a daily basis, we function, we move around, we do things, we think, we up, down, all around. Yeah, some of us have desk jobs, but, we still are functioning in much higher capacity than when we're just kind of sedentary or sleeping. So our body does need fuel to perform these tasks. So You know, if it doesn't get the fuel, it goes into emergency mode, and it goes into a semi-hoarding mode where it will take whatever fuel is entered after those bags and put it where? In fat stores. So essentially what we need to do is to try to feed our bodies to encourage it to burn the fat and, you know, kind of leave the muscle where it is. Because if the body feels like it's undernourished after a long period of time, it will start to leach from your system. So it'll take muscle mass and convert it to some form of sugar, you know, through your liver, and it will, you know, slow down your nervous system processes. Everything will become very slow and stagnant and very hard to get out of that kind of rut. So it becomes kind of a metabolic cycle for the body. So we need to kind of coerce the body to, you know, feed it more to the point where it increases its metabolic output, and that you have a huge amount of trouble keeping weight on because the body feels like it trusts you and it's satiated. So in the end, ultimately, what we really got to focus on is, you know, loving our bodies. You know, so many people just, the way that they feed themselves and the way that they treat their bodies, they treat their animals with more respect. You know, anybody who gets up 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and don't eat anything until they get home, I always question that when I get that response from a client. I'm like, okay, well, you know, if you had a child, would you starve your child all day? And they're like, no. If you had a pet, would you starve your pet all day? They're like, no. And I'm sitting there going, well, why do you do it to yourself? And they're just like, well, I don't think about it. You know, I don't feel hungry. Well, you should start thinking about it, because you're your own savior in this game. You know, nobody else can put a spoon or fork to your mouth. Nobody can lead you to water to drink. It's only you that has that power to make that decision. So, you know, you really got to take time out for yourself. You really, doesn't matter who you are, male, female, busy or not busy. Your health is your wealth, and unless you really focus on the nutrition aspect of it, overall, even in a lifestyle manner, and that's what this should really embody, then you're really going to have problems in life, generally, and eventually with disease and, you know, bodily issues as your body continues to decline and become more decrepit, you know, as you can continue to essentially abuse it with lack of attention, nutrient-wise or otherwise. So the way that the plans are kind of laid out, you get a lot of choice. There are numerous meals, different for different people, for different caloric intakes. But essentially, you should be eating every 2.5 to 3 hours. Space your meals out depending on how long you're up. If you're up for a very long time, you should be adding more food in. Okay, so as long as you're up, you should be eating. People think that they shouldn't be eating before midnight or bedtime or whatever. I say whatever to that, because I eat right before I go to bed every night. So that has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the purpose of what you're eating, how you're eating it, and why you're combining the foods that you're combining. And ultimately, that's for me to know, because that's why I study biochem, bioenergetics, metabolic issues and processes. That's why I know what I know. But what you really need to focus on is, you know, feeding the body the fuel when it needs it. So it needs it most when it gets up. It needs it most around the times that you're going to work out. So you need to preload your cardio with a form of pre-cardio food. And then usually if you're doing that in the morning, you'll come home and eat breakfast. Or, you know, eat breakfast, then have your snack, and then have cardio, and then eat your next meal, and. And for your resistance training, you pre and post load your resistance training 20 minutes before and 20 minutes after. So, you know, it's almost like you're breaking a meal up around a workout to keep your sugar levels and your nutrient and nutrition levels high while you are working out. So a lot of people don't eat before they work out, they don't eat after they work out, and they don't eat anywhere near in proximity when they get home. So even after that post-workout meal, you should be eating again in close proximity to that. And why? Because our bodies metabolize food continuously post-workout, because it's trying to heal. So the stresses that you've imposed upon it, which are beneficial in the end once they heal, have to be fed in order to heal. So if they're not being fed, then the body goes into a compensating mode. So you just kind of are constantly trying to compensate for the work that's been done and the stresses that have been imposed upon it. So you really want to get into a super compensation mode where the body gets, enough nutrition, it's able to heal, and it's able to improve bodily function and or muscle mass, lose fat, whatever it is that we're trying to do. But you can't do that by not eating, okay? And that can lead to a lot of other issues that we'll talk about later about, lack in the body, such as nutrients, nutrition, and the need for supplementation, which is another whole kettle of fish. So essentially, you want to eat all of your meals as per the meal plan, pre-prepare, cook it in bulk a couple days a week, so then it's there for you. You don't have to go messing around with it. Weigh, measure, and be accurate with your food. Otherwise, you won't be able to guesstimate how much you're intaking. You might be over, you might be under. Do not skip meals. Whatever you do, don't skip meals. I've had clients in the past omit like their pre and post workout meals and this and that. And I mean, by the time they were done, it was like less by 600 calories or so a day. And that's a significant amount. It's a ridiculous amount of food to not have in your diet. So, you're risking exercise-induced anorexia at that point, whereby you're starving yourself by doing too much and not consuming enough. Because we all have a base metabolic rate. So if you take your own body weight right now and times it by 10, that's what you need to eat. Just being comatose on your bed, not doing anything, not even doing this. So as soon as you start to move, you need to factor a percentage of that base metabolism, that base calorie amount back into it. So say if you're even sedentary, it's about 30%, roughly somewhere around that of your calories that should be added back in on top of that. So most people are not eating enough, both men and women. We're just not being cognizant of the way that we eat our foods, let alone how our food's being produced and everything else. And again, that's another talk. But, it's our responsibility to take care of our bodies because it's the only house that we have. And on top of that, if you have kids, you're setting an example as to how your kids are going to live. Do you want them to mindlessly eat at boxes of foods and shove candy in their face until they get home for supper, gorge on a meal and then go to bed at night? No. You have to make these decisions to show them the process of how you care for this machine that you reside in, right? You don't own it. And the thing is that if you mistreat it, we lose basically 50,000 cells a second. They die. So those 50,000 cells have to also come back to us as replicated cells. So if there's nothing within our functional nutrition to grab and replicate from, what's it replicating from? Those cells are becoming weaker and more degenerative and so on and so forth. And, you're getting into issues such as, higher inflammatory rates, lower pH levels, because when we're in gym situations, we're creating acidic environments within ourselves by creating lactic acid, high amounts of it when we're doing resistance training. And an ideal body blood pH consistency should be anywhere between 7.2 to a 7.8. Generally they're saying 7.3 to a 7.8, which is slightly alkalinized, not acidic. So as soon as you get down to acid mode, you get into pro-inflammatory mode, and inflammation leads to disease. It leads to dysfunctional immunological responses and all kinds of other problems that can really, lead us down the path to really poor health in the future. So, you really want to take care of what you need to take care of on a daily basis just in life, and use this as a life lesson to really plan your life around your health and not the other way around. Because, as I said before, your health is your wealth, and without that, you're really, you're not going to have much success in life or in training regarding health or otherwise. So take care of that now. So on top of that, want to just address water. We need to be hydrated. Even, I think, a 2% level of dehydration within the body can reduce, I think, upwards to 20+% performance rate in our body. So, ladies, you should be drinking upwards to 2 to 3 liters a day. You got to start off slow with that. Guys, same thing, up 4 or 5 liters a day. And again, you got to start slow with that if you haven't been doing it. same thing with the food. If you guys have all been, starving or erratically or very poorly eating, then you just can't go into a high-end meal plan and just start gorging yourself. You'll make yourself sick. So there's going to be methods by which I counsel each of you based upon how you've been eating to successfully implement all the meals eventually. But you may have to start it with lesser intake and work your way up to it, right? So, so you're kind of trying to do a tenfold type of thing all at once. So you're trying to increase the metabolism. You're trying to, enhance the body's ability to, use the nutrients that you're taking in. You're trying to increase the body's intake, all at the same time while trying to get fit. So, the body's really going to be in a freak out stage for a little bit. So you have to be very patient with yourself, and very loving towards the process in which you're going to endure. Because, body shred is not, I say it's not over the top, but I mean, it's an intensive program. It does, ramp up according to your own personal abilities quite quickly. So you have to have the nutrition and, the proper nutrients and supplementation to back that up. Otherwise, you could be putting your health at risk the opposite way, So you've got to protect your immunity one way or the other. So there's got to be a happy medium amongst all of it. And, your biggest ally in this whole thing is your food. So, your focus this week is on your food, to get your food organized, to get everything set up and ready to roll with you whenever and wherever you're going. Take a cooler with you. Cook things in bulk, like I said before. Use whatever's left over from meats and stuff, chop it up, freeze it, so that way you got like grab and go stuff. You also got some variations on recipes so you guys don't get bored. So there's lots of stuff there and lots of potential for food, and I like to keep food exciting. I don't believe in pharma foods or any of that kind of garbage. I believe in eating primarily real foods and then substituting other ones in that are fun but still nutritious. Outside of that, any questions that you may have, post them in the group, because guaranteed if it's nutrition or whatever related, someone else in the group is going to be thinking the same thing. So don't be embarrassed in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, you just got to plan, because if you fail to plan, you can plan to fail. And that's the issue with food. 80% of your effort will be with food because you're eating about 12 hours a day. And the other 2% of your day is spent in the gym for an hour to whatever the time ramps up to daily. But yeah, you got to make that commitment to yourself and to your family, essentially. But, don't take it lightly that, you can outrun bad eating habits, because they'll catch up on you one way or the other. So I'll leave it at that, and I wish you all a good day, and I hope that you all are enjoying reading through all the materials. A lot to read. I sent out some articles as well. Read all of those about how calories are metabolized. Different types of calories are not received by the body the same way. Fats, carbs, proteins are metabolized very different. Stuff about hydration and sport nutrition, and all the rest. And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to post on this video or under this video for me to answer, and I will do. So enjoy the process. I hope you're all getting organized and aren't too nervous. It's all going to be fine and grand at the end once you actually get your game on. But yeah, big learning curve this week. Big learning curve. So yeah, I guess I'll see you here again with the next level of information, which will be on supplementation. So talk to y'all soon. Take care. Peace out.